"Get out of my bedroom." Celeste Morrow didn't even bother pulling up the sheet. She just looked at Vivian, 7 months pregnant, rainwater dripping from her coat, hand pressed flat against the doorframe to keep herself standing, and smiled. Not a guilty smile, not a caught smile. The kind of smile that said, "I've been waiting for you to find out." "You should sit down," Celeste said, reaching for her wineglass on the nightstand. Adrian's nightstand. "You look like you might fall." That was the moment. Not the sight of them together, not Adrian's face going the color of old ash. It was Celeste Morrow, naked and unbothered in another woman's bed, offering her a seat like a host at a dinner party. If you have ever loved someone completely, trusted someone with your whole future, your body, your unborn child, and had that trust turned into a joke they didn't bother to hide, then you already know what Vivian felt standing in that doorway. And if you don't, you're about to. The phone was a habit more than a necessity. Pregnancy had made time unreliable, so Vivian Hale used it for prenatal reminders, appointment times, and notes for the East Side Children's Literacy Center. She noticed it was missing only after she reached the center with a box of donated picture books balanced against her hip. A mother was supposed to text about the reading grant Vivian had spent 6 weeks building. The program mattered because it was hers, separate from Adrian, separate from the Viscari name. Vivian handed the books to a volunteer and drove home through the October rain. 40 minutes later, she slipped through the Mercer Building's side entrance, nodded to Patrick at the desk, and took the private elevator. The penthouse was dark. Adrian should have been at the office. She crossed the foyer, saw her phone face down beside the fruit bowl, and heard laughter from the bedroom. Vivian stopped in the hallway. It was low and deliberate, the sound of 2 people inside a private joke. It came from their room, the room where, 2 Sundays earlier, Adrian had pressed his ear against her stomach and whispered, "I didn't know it was possible to want something this much." The door was half open. She pushed it the rest of the way. What she saw was not cinematic. There was no slow revelation, no dramatic light, no mercy in the order of details. The brain is crueler than that. It takes everything at once and files it immediately into a category it can never uncreate. Adrian stood near the window, his shirt half unbuttoned. Celeste sat on the edge of the bed with a wineglass in her hand, her dark hair deliberately undone. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Celeste looked toward the door and did not look away. That steadiness was what Vivian would turn over in the months that followed. Not Adrian's face, slack with a kind of horror that seemed almost juvenile in its rawness. Not the earrings Vivian recognized from Celeste's professional photograph. The complete, unhurried steadiness with which Celeste met her eyes and held them. "You're home early," Celeste said. Adrian moved forward. "Vivian, don't." She said it quietly. Her hand had found the doorframe because the floor had become unreliable. 7 months pregnant, her center of gravity already existed somewhere outside herself. Now the room was tilting in a direction that had no name. Celeste placed the glass on Adrian's nightstand. "You should sit. You've had a shock." "Celeste?" Adrian's voice had an edge in it. "Stop. I'm being practical. She's pregnant." Celeste adjusted the lapel of her blazer as though wrapping up a meeting that had run long. Adrian belongs beside someone who understands what he actually is, not someone who spends her afternoons reading picture books to other people's children and pretending that is a life. "Stop talking." But Celeste was still looking at Vivian. "You're a good woman, I'm sure, but good women make poor partners for men like him. He needs someone who can keep up." For a moment the room was so quiet Vivian could hear rain striking the windows. Then she turned around and walked away. "Vivian." Adrian was behind her, pulling on his shirt, his footsteps uneven with urgency. She reached the kitchen and picked up her phone. It sat exactly where she had left it, face down, slightly to the left of the fruit bowl. "Please, just let me explain. There are things you don't know, things I've been trying to protect you from." The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. "Vivian, please." She watched the doors close on his face. Not furious, not calculating, not the face of the man who controlled one of the most feared criminal organizations on the West Coast. Just a man watching something leave that he finally understood he could not keep. Patrick looked up when she crossed the lobby. He began to mention the weather, as he often did. Then he saw her face and said nothing. He held the door open instead. Vivian walked into the rain without an umbrella. She did not cry in the car. Adrian's name lit the screen before she reached the freeway. Vivian turned the phone face down, and it buzzed 4 more times. Then the baby moved. She pressed a hand against her stomach, pulled back into the one reality that still required something from her. "It's okay," she said, unsure which of them she was trying to convince. She knew where she was going before she admitted it. Naomi Hale lived in a narrow 3-story house in Capitol Hill that she had bought because it was hers. The sisters had not spoken in 8 months, not since Naomi said she did not trust Adrian and Vivian chose defending him over hearing her. Vivian parked beneath the light of Naomi's upstairs office and sat for 10 minutes. Then she rang the bell. Footsteps approached and paused while Naomi checked the peephole. The door opened. Naomi took one look at her sister. Soaked, one hand on her stomach, the other hanging uselessly at her side, and did not say, "What happened?" She did not say, "Are you all right?" She did not say, "I warned you." She opened the door wider. Vivian sat at the kitchen table while Naomi made tea. Her sister moved with the efficiency of a woman who boiled water the same way she argued motions, precisely, without wasted effort. "Tell me," Naomi said. So Vivian told her. She kept her voice flat until she reached Celeste's sentence about good women making poor partners for men like Adrian. Her voice went somewhere unstable. She stopped, breathed, and came back. Naomi waited a full minute after she finished. That was her particular discipline. She never said the first thing that occurred to her because the first thing was usually fury, and fury was loud, and fury made mistakes. "You're not going back," Naomi said. It was not a question. No. "Okay." Naomi took one sip of tea. "Then we talk about what comes next." What came next was Naomi. Vivian had forgotten what it felt like to have her sister entirely on her side. Naomi, in advocacy mode, was a different person. She asked who held the medical insurance, what was in Vivian's name, whether Adrian could freeze the joint accounts, where the prenatal records were stored, who had keys to the penthouse. By midnight, she had contacted a locksmith, a forensic accountant, and Damien Cross, a family attorney with a difficult disposition, an expensive hourly rate, and a record of winning cases other lawyers declined. "I don't want a war," Vivian said. Naomi looked at her clearly, not unkindly. "You walked into your bedroom and found your husband with his assistant. You are 7 months pregnant, and you think there is a version of this that is not a war." Vivian looked down at her tea. "Let me help you," Naomi said. "Not because you're weak, because you are exhausted and carrying a child, and you deserve someone fighting for you who is not also devastated. Let me be the one who isn't devastated." 8 months of distance. 8 months of birthdays acknowledged by text and calls that never happened. Still, Naomi had opened the door. "Okay," Vivian said. Outside, rain kept falling over Seattle like it had made a commitment it intended to keep. Adrian called 11 times before Vivian turned off her phone. He sat beside the same fruit bowl and kept calling until the silence became an answer. He left no messages. Nothing he needed to say could survive being recorded. Celeste was gone. He had ordered her out, and she had left without argument, taking nothing Adrian could see. The ease of it disturbed him. 3 years inside his organization, 4 months inside his bed, and she had vanished from the penthouse as if departure had always been part of the plan. Adrian took out another phone and called Marco Valle, the lieutenant who had stood beside him for 2 decades. "I need eyes on Vivian. No contact. No one she can see." "Understood. She stays safe. And Celeste?" Adrian looked toward the bedroom, at the wineglass still waiting on the nightstand. "Find her. Find out who helped her leave." He ended the call. Power had given him 2 actions: watch the woman he had betrayed and hunt the woman who had disappeared. It could not make Vivian answer. The first morning without Adrian was a Wednesday. Vivian knew because she counted it. 14 hours since the elevator doors had closed. 14 hours since she walked into the rain with nowhere to go and arrived exactly where she needed to be. She was 31 years old, 7 months pregnant, and in possession of a phone, a wallet, a wet coat, and the prenatal vitamins she carried out of paranoia. That was the inventory of her current life. Her screen showed 43 missed calls, 11 voicemails, and 22 messages. She scrolled past all of them to find Deborah's text about the grant. Grant coordinator said she'll call Thursday. Fingers crossed. Vivian wrote back, "Thursday is good, thank you." Then she put the phone face down and stared at the slanted ceiling until Naomi called from the stairs. "There's coffee. Damien Cross will be here in 20 minutes. It's been one night. I know how long it's been. 19 minutes. Damien arrived at 8:58 in a coat that had been expensive once and now simply looked like it belonged to him. He was in his mid-50s, with a face that had stopped trying to look friendly and settled instead for trustworthy. For 90 minutes he asked about accounts, insurance, property, prenatal records, and Celeste Morrow. When Vivian repeated the speech about good women making poor partners for men like Adrian, Damien stopped writing. Word for word? Yes. Something passed between him and Naomi. Not surprise. Heightened attention. "You have a strong legal position," Damien said. "But Adrian Viscari has enough power to make a strong position dangerous. If he decides to control the divorce, the money, and the public story, the law will not be the only thing in the room." "Then keep him out of the room," Vivian said. Damien's pen paused. Naomi almost smiled. At 11:15, a black car stopped half a block away. Vivian watched it from the guest room window before telling Naomi. Naomi called Adrian's corporate attorney. "Your client is outside my residence. If he attempts contact against Vivian's wishes, I will file an emergency motion before 2. 20 minutes later, the car left. At 1, the attorney called back. Adrian wanted a private meeting about a threat to Vivian and the baby. "It could be manipulation," Naomi said. "He makes you feel endangered, then offers himself as the only safe place. Or the danger could be real." Which is why Damien is checking. His answer arrived at 4:17. 18 months of transfers led not to Adrian's personal accounts but to a protected trust for the unborn child. More disturbing were credible messages sent in July by a rival syndicate. They targeted Adrian's heir. In response, he had moved money and placed 3 security contractors around Vivian without telling her. "He was watching me." "That will be called protection," Damien said. Vivian covered the baby with one hand. "Protection would have given me the truth and let me choose. This is management." He decided what I was allowed to know, where I was allowed to feel safe, and called the decision love. Naomi slid a page across the table. It held the names, photographs, and phone numbers of 2 people she wanted outside the house that night. "Say no and they leave," she said. "Say yes and every change comes through you." Vivian studied the page. That was the difference. Not the guards. The choice. "Yes," she said. "For tonight." The next 3 days felt suspended, like the moment between lightning and thunder when you know the sound is coming but it has not arrived yet. At Vivian's prenatal appointment, Dr. Yoon confirmed the baby was fine and warned that Vivian's blood pressure would not remain patient simply because the rest of her life was in crisis. "Sleep," she said. "Everything else you can figure out while awake." Vivian managed 4 hours that night. Naomi's landline rang at 2 in the morning. Vivian heard her sister answer across the hall, then heard the quality of the silence that followed. Naomi appeared in the guest room doorway wearing a grey t-shirt and the expression she used in court when unexpected evidence changed the shape of a case. That was Damien. Celeste Morrow has disappeared. Vivian sat up. "What do you mean, disappeared?" She missed a meeting Wednesday morning. Her apartment was empty. Her car was in the garage, but her overnight bag was gone. People inside Adrian's organization are asking what she knew and what she gave to outsiders. The baby rolled slowly beneath Vivian's hand. "Then she may have been more than his mistress," Naomi said. "The affair may have had a purpose that had nothing to do with love." "You mean I was collateral?" Naomi did not answer, which was itself an answer. Damien returned the following morning with the same legal pad and none of the sleep a man his age required. 3 weeks before Vivian came home early, Adrian's organization had intercepted communications between a rival group and an unidentified internal source. The messages referred to the marriage, the pregnancy, and the trust. Someone was providing financial and personal information designed to destabilize Adrian's leadership. Celeste was hired through a recruitment firm, Damien said. That firm is owned by a shell company connected to the Kessler organization. The Kesslers were Adrian's oldest rivals. Dorian Voss ran their financial operations from a careful distance. The affair may have been engineered, Damien said. Vivian placed her coffee on the table. You are telling me my husband was seduced by a woman placed inside his company to destroy his marriage. I am telling you it is a serious possibility. Does he know? We believe he did not. Outside, Naomi's oak tree released its last leaves one at a time, with a patience indifferent to everyone watching. Does it change anything? Naomi asked. Vivian sat with the question because it deserved to be held before it was answered. He still had the affair. Maybe Celeste was placed there. Maybe somebody designed the whole thing. She was still in our bed because he let her in. Vivian's voice stayed steady in a way that cost her something. If they intended to destroy us, they succeeded because he gave them something to use. Then we proceed, Damien said. We proceed, Vivian agreed. She filed for divorce on Friday. There was no press conference and no performance. Damien took her through every page. She questioned 2 clauses on custodial access and rewrote a third so that Adrian could not make security decisions for the child without disclosing the reason and the method to her. Then she signed. She had feared the signature would feel like the official documentation of a life ending. Instead, it felt like a door closing from the inside by her own hand at a time of her choosing. The difference between being left and leaving. She was leaving. Adrian received notice at 2:43. He read Vivian's name beneath the words dissolution of marriage once, then called Marco. Celeste? No trace. Movement from the Kesslers? Chatter. They know the petition was filed. Then they'll move. Adrian closed the document. No one approaches Vivian's house, her clinic, or the literacy center. She sees nobody. She feels nothing. Understood. She needs to know she is free. He ended the call and contacted an information broker whose existence his corporate lawyer did not know about. Find everything on Celeste Moreau. Who recruited her, who paid her, who she was before she entered my building. Find her before the people who placed her do. The filing changed nothing Adrian intended to do about Vivian's decision. It changed what his enemies believed they could do with the opening. He put the petition in a locked drawer and began hunting the people who had timed the collapse. For Vivian, the following weeks were measured in legal appointments, blood pressure checks, and the slow movement of her daughter beneath her ribs. She and Naomi learned how to be sisters again without announcing that they were doing it. Naomi left tea outside the guest room. Vivian corrected footnotes in one of Naomi's briefs. They argued over which chair belonged near the window and discovered the argument contained no old injuries. Adrian communicated through lawyers. He released every account Damien requested, placed the trust under independent oversight, and agreed that no security plan would exist without Vivian's written knowledge. He did not ask her to suspend the petition. That restraint frightened her in a different way. She had prepared for pressure. She had not prepared for a man powerful enough to resist almost anyone deciding that the only person he would not overpower was her. 5 weeks after Vivian found them in the bedroom, Damien came to Naomi's house before sunrise. A younger associate named Ruth followed with a leather document case and said nothing during the meeting. They found Celeste, Damien said. She is alive. Federal agents had recovered her from a house outside Olympia. She had been held for 8 days, then moved twice before an anonymous tip exposed the third property. Her wrist was broken. She had a serious concussion. She had also begun talking. The affair was not voluntary, Damien said. Not in any meaningful use of the word. The kitchen became very quiet. 22 months earlier, Dorian Voss recruited Celeste through the Shell-owned employment firm. At first, her assignment was information gathering, calendar access, communications, routes, financial movements. 7 months later, Voss decided the operation was moving too slowly. He ordered her to get closer, Naomi said. Damien nodded. Close enough to fracture the marriage. She refused. Voss showed her recent photographs of her sister and 2 nieces in Lyon. He explained what would happen to them if she failed. Vivian stared at the grain of Naomi's kitchen table. Celeste seduced Adrian under duress, Damien continued. The affair lasted 4 months. She tried to end it twice. The first time Voss contacted her sister's employer. The second time someone entered her niece's school and photographed the child at her desk. And the day I came home? Celeste knew you would arrive. Voss arranged for someone in the building to ensure you returned for a forgotten item. The destruction of the marriage was the final objective. You did not stumble into that bedroom. You were placed there. Vivian heard every word. Her mind understood the content while another part dismantled the shape of the world it had been holding for 5 weeks. Someone knew I left my phone. Or ensured you would. She remembered checking her bag before leaving. She always checked. Wallet, keys, phone. She could see herself standing in the foyer with the box of books beneath one arm and her hand inside the side pocket. Someone took it out, Vivian said. They went through my bag and put the phone on the counter. Damien wrote the sentence slowly. Everything she believed about that afternoon was structurally accurate and fundamentally wrong. Adrian had betrayed her. Celeste had been in the room. The wine glass and undone hair had been real. All of it had also been built by people she had never met, using her marriage as raw material. Someone had sat in a room and decided that the most efficient way to destabilize a criminal empire was to destroy the woman at its center. Not threaten her, not confront her, just arrange a Tuesday afternoon that would make her leave on her own. And it had worked. Celeste being a victim does not cancel what Adrian chose, Naomi said upstairs later. I know. Vivian reached for the kettle and remembered the side pocket of her bag beneath her hand that morning. Wallet. Keys. Phone. She had checked it. She was certain. Cold sharpened into anger. Someone had entered her home, taken the phone from her bag, and placed it on the counter, knowing exactly what its absence would make her do. Vivian called Adrian. He answered before the first ring finished. Someone was in the penthouse that morning. I need the lobby footage. His silence was not guilty. It was a working silence. What time did you leave? 8:40. Did you see anyone you did not recognize? Vivian thought of the quiet lobby, Patrick, a cleaner near the service elevator, and a woman in a dark coat waiting beside the mailboxes. A woman. Around 40. She looked down when I passed. She heard Adrian typing. I'll send Damien everything from 8 until 10. Don't say anything else. I wasn't going to. Yes, you were. Give me the footage. That is all I need. A pause. Okay. The footage arrived in Damien's inbox 48 minutes later. At 8:21, the woman in the dark coat entered the lobby using a keycard. She stood near the mailboxes with her face angled away from the camera. At 8:39, Vivian crossed the lobby carrying the box of books. At 8:44, the woman entered the private elevator using the penthouse code. She remained upstairs for 7 minutes. When she returned, she did not rush. She walked with the unhurried certainty of someone who had done exactly what she came to do. Ruth enhanced a single frame in which the camera caught the edge of her profile. Her name was Petra Solano. She had 2 arrests under different identities and worked for a shipping company connected through 4 shell corporations to Dorian Voss. They planned the entire morning, Vivian said. My routine. The center. The time I left. Someone inside Adrian's organization gave them all of it. Damien slid a page across the table. Payments from the company that recruited Celeste had also reached an account held by Gil Tran, one of Adrian's senior lieutenants. Gil had been with the Viscari organization for 16 years. He coordinated penthouse security. He knew the access codes, prenatal appointments, and every route between Vivian's house, clinic, and volunteer work. Does Adrian know? Naomi asked. Not yet, Damien said. That decision belongs to Vivian. Both of them looked at her. 16 years. Gil had attended their wedding and eaten at their table. He had been in the hospital lobby when she registered her prenatal care. He had congratulated Adrian on the child and known somebody was constructing a weapon out of the pregnancy. Tell him, Vivian said. Naomi's eyes narrowed. Viv. Not because I am protecting him. If a man inside his organization helped design this and Adrian does not know, the danger does not stop with him. She covered her stomach. It reaches our daughter. Adrian received the information at 5:17. At 5:23, Giltran was unreachable. His phone had been disabled. His apartment was empty. His car remained in the Viscari garage, which meant he had either run with help or been removed before he knew he needed to run. Adrian had known Gil since the man was 30. He had attended Gil's mother's funeral and sent his daughter a fountain pen when she graduated. A small, practical gift, the kind intended to show you saw the person's actual life and not merely their role in yours. 16 years. Marco called with a second piece of information. Dorian Voss arrived this morning on a private charter. Where? Seattle. There is no scheduled meeting. He is not here to negotiate. Adrian went to the window. Rain had started again, low and steady, the kind with no interest in drama, the kind that simply intended to continue. Where is Vivian? Capitol Hill. 2 of Reyes's contractors outside, 1 mobile. Add 2. Put eyes on the clinic and the literacy center. No one moves against Voss without my direct order. No retaliation near her. No escalation she can be pulled into. Understood. Adrian looked at Vivian's name on his personal phone. He did not call. She had told him what she needed. Information, practical protection, distance. He could give her those things. They were the least he could do and the most she had asked for. The space between them was the exact width of everything he had broken. The knock at Naomi's door came at 8:15 that night. 3 knocks, evenly spaced. Not loud, but carrying the authority of someone who had decided she would remain there until answered. Naomi checked the peephole. A woman. Alone. I don't recognize her. Vivian sat on the couch with a book open in her lap and no memory of the page. Don't open it. Naomi called Reyes, the woman supervising the private security detail. Through the street camera, Reyes could see the visitor had walked from the south end of the block and stood outside for 4 minutes before knocking. She carried a letter-sized envelope. 3 more knocks came. Then a voice passed through the door, ragged in the specific way of someone who had cried, stopped, and begun operating on the far side of it. My name is Celeste Morrow. I know I'm the last person either of you wants to see. I know I have no right to come here. A pause. But I have something that cannot be handed to a lawyer. It has to come from me. To her. Vivian was already standing. Naomi touched her arm. Viv? She is the one they hurt to get to me. She is also the one who led them into your marriage. Both are true. Vivian looked at the door. Open it. Celeste stood in the porch light looking like the debris left behind by a version of herself that no longer existed. Her wrist was braced. A healing bruise ran along her left cheekbone. Her hair had been pulled back with no art in it. The clothes she wore were slightly too large, borrowed from somebody who had cared more about speed than fit. For the first time since the bedroom, Vivian saw something entirely different in Celeste's face. Not guilt, not fear. Something beyond both. I'm sorry, Celeste said. It was not performed. It was the flat, exhausted kind of apology carried too long to be anything except what it was. That isn't enough, Vivian said. I know. It will never be enough. Celeste held out the envelope. But you deserve to know that I understand what I cost you, even if I could not stop all of it. Vivian took the envelope but did not open it. Come inside, she said. You look like you haven't eaten. Naomi made a small sound of objection. Vivian heard it and continued looking at Celeste. The muscles in Celeste's throat moved. She nodded and stepped over the threshold. Written across the envelope in small, precise handwriting were the words, "Everything Voss ordered me to learn," and "What I found instead." Inside was a notarized confession with photographs, communication logs, account numbers, and copies of instructions. 2 years of orchestrated betrayal laid out in the unambiguous language of a woman who had decided that truth was the only currency left to her. The final page was handwritten. Adrian tried to end the affair 3 times. The first time Voss sent photographs of my nieces. The second time he told me where your mother shops in Spokane. The third time someone entered Adrian's mother's building in Genoa and left a white ribbon on her door. After that, Adrian stopped trying. I am not telling you this to excuse him. I am telling you because you should know that the man in that bedroom was not the man they set out to trap. He was what remained after they were done. Vivian read the note twice. She folded it along the original lines, returned it to the envelope, and looked at Celeste. "Why did you say those things to me?" Celeste's face altered almost invisibly. Voss required the marriage to end that day. He had men listening through my phone. If you hesitated, I was supposed to make leaving feel like your idea and returning feel like humiliation. You told me my work was not a life. I had read the grant proposal in your email. I knew exactly what would hurt because I had spent months studying you. Her voice lowered. Your work was the thing about you I envied most. It belonged only to you. That is why I used it. The cruelty became more precise now that Vivier understood it. It also became, in a way she resented, more human. Did Adrian know I was coming? No. He believed you would be at the center until noon. When you appeared, he understood that I had arranged it, but he did not yet understand why. And still he said nothing. He was ashamed. Shame is not silence, Celeste. Silence is a choice. Celeste lowered her eyes. Yes. The answer mattered. Not because it healed anything, but because Celeste did not try to turn coercion into absolution. Naomi's phone rang at 8:41. She answered before the second ring and listened for 11 seconds. Her face did not collapse. Naomi's face never collapsed. It recalibrated. How many? She asked. How far out? Another pause. Bring the mobile unit to the alley. Now. She ended the call and looked at Celeste. You were followed. Celeste went very still. I changed cars 3 times. I walked the last 6 blocks. 2 dark SUVs appeared within 12 minutes of each other. A third just stopped on the north corner. Naomi pulled a compact black bag from the hall closet. They are building a perimeter. They're here for me, Celeste said. If the confession is filed, Voss loses every layer between himself and the Kessler operation. Then he is going to lose them, Naomi replied. Leave me here. Keep their attention on this address while you move, Vivian. No, Vivian said. This is the one thing I can make right. No. You do not get to repay me by making me carry your death too. Vivian put on her coat. We all leave. Reyes entered through the back door at 8:46. She was compact, fast-moving, and possessed the energy of somebody who assessed a room before crossing its threshold. 2 vehicles out front, 1 at the north corner. They are closing the block. A sedan is in the alley. We have 4 minutes, probably less. Naomi lifted the black bag. Destination? Swedish Medical. Dr. Yun has arranged a secure entrance and an observation room. Vivian stared at her sister. You called my doctor? When we learnt Voss was in the city, I have been waiting to find out whether I was overreacting. You weren't. No. They moved through the back of the house into an alley smelling of rain-soaked concrete. A grey sedan waited 30 feet away with its lights off, exhaust visible in the cold. Vivian moved faster than she had in months. The weight of the baby shifted with every step. Naomi stayed beside her with one hand extended. Not pulling, simply there to catch whatever might happen. They were 10 feet from the car when headlights ignited at the north entrance. A black SUV had stopped across the alley. The light flattened everything. Brick walls, wet pavement, 4 women caught between one vehicle and another. Reyes stepped in front of Vivian. A man left the SUV. He was medium height, medium build, dressed in a dark coat. The kind of person designed to be forgotten, which was its own form of threat. Miss Morrow, he called. Nobody else needs to become involved. Celeste made a sound that was not a word. The documents, the man said. You come with us. Everyone else goes home. Reyes spoke without turning. Naomi, put her in the car. The south entrance was still open. Naomi took Vivian's arm, and Vivian moved because the voice in her ear said, Move. Just move, and her body understood there was no time left for interpretation. She reached the sedan. Naomi closed her inside and locked the door. Through the rain-marked rear window, Vivian watched Reyes speak to the man, creating space with conversation. Celeste stood 6 feet behind her, motionless. Vivian's phone rang. Adrian. I know, he said as soon as she answered. Stay in the car. How do you know? I have access to Reyes's live security feed. My people are on both ends of the block. Celeste is still outside. I see her. Give me 60 seconds, the man advanced. Reyes matched him with one precise lateral step that narrowed his angle without appearing aggressive. Celeste reached into her coat. What she removed was not a weapon. It was her phone. She held the screen toward the man. "The confession is already on a federal server," she called. "If I disappear, the distribution expands automatically. You cannot retrieve it. You cannot stop it." The man halted. Then the alley filled with new light. 2 vehicles entered from the south and stopped without blocking the grey sedan. The people who stepped out moved with the coordinated purpose of men and women told exactly where to be and what not to do when they arrived. No shots were fired. Nobody needed one. The man at the north entrance made the calculation and reversed out. The second SUV followed. A third vehicle attempted the opposite street and found federal cars closing from the east. Reyes opened the sedan door. "We leave now. Whatever happens behind us belongs to somebody else." Vivian did not begin shaking until the hospital elevator. It came all at once, a delayed reaction, Dr. Yoon later described as normal. The body holds itself together through danger and releases afterward, and the release is not polite about timing. Naomi put an arm around her shoulders. Vivian pressed both hands to her stomach and shook for 90 seconds. Then it stopped. Dr. Yoon waited on the 3rd floor. She asked nothing about sous vides, confessions, or criminal organizations. She asked about pain, contractions, blood pressure, and fetal movement. "Lie down," she said. "Everything else can wait." The monitor found the baby's heartbeat, fast, steady, a small, insistent argument made by someone who had not yet learned to doubt herself. Vivian listened, and felt something that was neither relief nor grief, but lived near both. Celeste sat in a corner with the braced wrist on her knee. Nobody invited her into the room. Nobody told her to leave. She occupied the least possible space, a woman who understood exactly how much she believed she deserved. "What was on the phone?" Vivian asked. "A live upload. Damien already had the confession before I knocked, but the transmission completed when I gave you the original. You expected them to follow you." "I thought it was likely." "You went into the alley on purpose." Celeste looked up. "I put myself where their attention would stay long enough for you to reach the car. That is a different thing." The baby's heartbeat continued its steady percussion. "I don't forgive you," Vivian said. "I know. Understanding what happened to you is not the same as forgiving what you did to me." "I know that too. But thank you for the alley." Celeste nodded once and looked back at the floor. Adrian arrived at 10:19 and did not approach the room. Through the narrow window in the door, Vivian saw him standing at the far end of the corridor while Naomi received his report with the constructed neutrality of an attorney gathering facts from a witness she did not trust. He looked at the room once, then he looked away. Dr. Yoon checked the monitor again. "The baby is fine. Your blood pressure is higher than I want, and you are staying overnight." "Okay. There is a man in the corridor who would like to know how you are. I am not advocating for him. I am giving you information." After the doctor left, Vivian sat for a long time. Celeste had fallen asleep against the wall. Without the practiced expression, she looked like an ordinary tired person. Vivian put on her coat over the hospital gown and stepped into the corridor. Adrien stood with his back against the wall, his arms at his sides, as though he had decided the only position available to him was waiting, and he intended to do it without demanding to know how long. There was a cut above his left eye and swelling across the knuckles of his right hand. "You're bleeding," Vivian said. "Some of it is mine." Reyes said there was a confrontation in the parking structure near Voss's hotel. "It's handled." "I hate that word." "Then I won't use it again." She leaned against the wall opposite him. "Your people reached the alley in less than 60 seconds. Adrian said nothing. They were already there. "Yes." "Where were you?" He looked down, then back at her. "In a vehicle at the south end of the block." Something moved through her beneath anger. "How many nights have you been sitting outside Naomi's house?" The corridor was so quiet they could hear the monitor inside her room. "Since you left." Vivian closed her eyes. "You cannot sit outside my life every night like you are keeping watch over something you still own." "I know what I don't own." His voice cracked slightly on the second word. "I know what you filed. I know what I destroyed. I sat in the car because it was the only thing I could do that was not nothing." She looked at him. He had held himself together by force for 5 weeks, and the cost was beginning to show in places his suits could not hide. "The baby is safe," Vivian said. "That is the first thing you need to know." His face changed in a way she chose not to name. Okay. The legal process continues. I know. And no more cars outside without my knowledge. Security decisions go through Naomi and Damien. I know the names, the routes, and every change. Everything, he said. Nothing happens without your consent. That is what I should have done from the beginning. Yes. She turned toward the room. Vivian. She stopped without looking back. I am sorry for every choice I made that gave them something to use. Every secret. Every decision I made for both of us without asking. Every time I chose to manage instead of trust. He paused. I am sorry for all of it. The apology came without explanation or request. 2 words stripped of negotiation. I know, she said, and returned to the room. At 2:17 in the morning, her body made its own decision. The first contraction arrived with the authority of something that had been building for hours and merely waited for the proper moment to announce itself. Pressure began low, spread, held, and released, leaving Vivian staring at the ceiling. She pressed the call button. A nurse appeared within 30 seconds. I think she has decided not to wait, Vivian said, and another contraction took the rest of the sentence. Dr. Yoon arrived with 2 nurses. What followed was fast, physical, and indifferent to every careful plan made around it. Naomi reached the hospital at 2:48. Dr. Yoon told her labor was advancing quickly, as though the baby had somewhere to be. Naomi called Adrian from the waiting room. She did not debate it. Whatever she thought of him as a husband or a man, a child deserved a father who showed up. She is in labor, Naomi said. Swedish Medical, 3rd floor. Don't make me regret this call. Adrian had been at the Viscari office arranging the transfer of Celeste's evidence to federal investigators. He left alone. It was an error born of urgency and the belief that because Voss was in custody, the last danger had ended. At 3:04 he parked beneath the hospital. A motion alert appeared on his phone from the north entrance camera. He looked around the concrete structure and understood that Kessler's people had anticipated exactly what he would do when Vivian went into labor. 3 men emerged from behind a row of vehicles. Mr. Viscari, the first said. Mr. Kessler would like 5 minutes. Adrian looked toward the elevator 20 feet away. His daughter was arriving 3 floors above him. There was no version of the next 5 minutes in which he was not inside that building. He moved. The confrontation was brief, ugly, and without the choreography violence receives in movies. 1 man struck the concrete. Another drove a blade across Adrian's left side before Adrian forced his arm away. A third reached for something beneath his coat, heard approaching sirens, and chose escape. Adrian pressed the elevator button with a bloody hand. The doors opened. He stepped inside, selected 3, and kept 1 palm against the wall while the numbers changed. 1, 2, 3. The doors opened at 3:11. Naomi stood when she saw him, blood spreading through his shirt, the cut over his eye reopened, 1 hand clamped against his side. What happened? Parking structure. Is she all right? She is. Then I'm fine. No, you are not. Naomi called a nurse. They cut Adrian's shirt, cleaned a deep laceration, and closed it with 10 stitches while he watched the corridor leading toward the delivery rooms. When it was done, he sat beside Naomi in a borrowed scrub top. The waiting room television showed a silent weather map of a front approaching from the coast. Thank you for calling, he said. I called for Vivian and the baby. I know. The men downstairs? Federal custody. Voss 2. Giltran surrendered earlier tonight and gave them the internal records. And your organization? Adrian breathed carefully against the stitches. I started separating the legitimate businesses 3 months ago. Tomorrow the rest of the records go to prosecutors. Every illegal account, route, and agreement. I will accept whatever follows. Naomi looked at him. You are dismantling it. I built the thing that made my wife and daughter useful targets. I cannot keep the thing and claim I am protecting them from it. She still won't take you back. I know. Even with Celeste's confession. I know. Adrian watched the empty corridor. I am not making a case for myself. I am ending the reason someone could make a case out of them. Naomi studied him directly for the first time since Vivian came to her door. She read Celeste's note twice, she said. I am not giving you information to use. I am telling you because it is 4 in the morning, you have 10 stitches, and this is the exact amount of compassion I have available. She held 2 fingers a centimeter apart. Do not waste it. Adrian looked at her hand and nodded. At 4:17, Dr. Yoon entered the waiting room with the tired satisfaction of someone who had guided something important to its proper conclusion. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 19 inches. She came fast, she came loud, and both mother and child are fine. Adrian stood. The stitches reminded him. He stood anyway. May I see them? I'll ask. Dr. Yoon returned 2 minutes later. Room 7. 5 minutes. I am counting. The room was dim, lit only by a warm panel above the bed. It smelled of antiseptic and the physical aftermath of enormous effort. Vivienne lay against the pillows, exhausted in a way that seemed cellular. Her hair was damp. Her eyes were open. Their daughter rested against her chest, a small body with dark hair, one fist curled beside her cheek, breathing with the unconscious confidence of someone who had not yet been told about the world. Adrian stopped inside the doorway. He had negotiated in rooms where the stakes were absolute. He had made decisions that continued to live in his body. He was not unfamiliar with moments that demanded everything. This was different from all of them. Vivienne took in the scrub top, the dressing at his side, and the dried line of blood along his temple. Naomi told me about the parking structure. It's over, he caught himself. The men were arrested. Voss and Gill are in federal custody. The evidence is secure. And the Kesslers? Their financial network has been frozen. By morning there will be no one left with a reason to reach her. He looked at the baby. She is safe. That is what I came to tell you. His voice stopped. He let it stop. Vivienne watched him for a moment. Come closer. He crossed the room and sat carefully beside the bed. She does not have a name yet, Vivienne said. He looked at her. I couldn't name her without you here. It felt wrong. She said it simply, not as an invitation or concession, only as a truth she had decided not to disguise. What were you thinking? Ara. The name settled into the room like something that had been waiting there all along. Ara, Adrian repeated. It's good. I know. I've been thinking about it for 2 months. He almost smiled. This time she saw it. Ara moved against her mother, opened one fist, and closed it again. She is going to be stubborn, he said. She is going to be exactly as stubborn as she needs to be. Adrian looked at his daughter. I will agree to the custody terms. All of them. I will not fight the divorce, and I will not use the restructuring as a reason you should change your mind. Vivienne's hand moved slowly over Ara's back. Damien found the filings. You began separating the legitimate companies before I knew about the affair. I started when the threats came. I told myself it was for her. Some of it was. Some of it was because I finally understood that the life I ran was not one I wanted a child to inherit. That matters, Vivienne said. It does not fix what broke. I know. She will need you. Not the money, the name, or whatever remains of your empire. She will need her father to show up when you say you will. That is the whole requirement. I will show up. Vivienne held his gaze, measuring the statement against the man who had spent 5 weeks in a car outside Naomi's house and had finally learned that presence without permission could become another kind of absence. I believe you, she said. It was not forgiveness. It was not a door opening. It was an honest assessment, and Adrian received it as such. Dr. Yoon appeared in the doorway. Time. Adrian stood. He looked once more at the dark hair, the small fist, the set of Ara's mouth that resembled Vivienne's. He did not reach for her. Tonight, wanting was not the same thing as having the right. She looks like you, he said at the door. Vivienne looked down at their daughter. She looks like herself. That is the point. He nodded and walked out. The months that followed did not arrange themselves into a clean narrative. The afterward was not cinematic. It was ordinary days, difficult days, and occasional impossible ones placed end to end without the courtesy of a clear arc. Vivienne moved into a house in Eastlake, 3 blocks from the water, with a neglected garden, a room that received morning light, and a kitchen that belonged to her in the particular way spaces become yours when nobody else has a claim on them. She painted the kitchen pale yellow, Naomi said the color was too cheerful. Every morning, Vivian found it exactly right. Ara came home at 4 days old and proved immediately that she had positions. She objected to bright light, preferred a blanket with yellow stitching, and considered being put down without prior approval a serious violation. She slept in 3-hour intervals she selected without consultation. Vivian loved her with the unglamorous, round-the-clock intensity of someone who had prepared for love and discovered preparation had almost nothing to do with the real thing. Elaine came from Spokane for 2 weeks. She and Vivian repaired the accumulated damage of the previous years without naming it. They cooked in the yellow kitchen, watched Ara sleep, and drank coffee on the back porch. Naomi came every Sunday carrying food she had not made and legal updates delivered in the same tone. Celeste entered federal protection with her sister and nieces. Before leaving Seattle, she sent Vivian one message. The literacy grant was approved. I checked before they closed my access. Vivian read it, put the phone away, and did not answer. Compassion did not require correspondence. Understanding did not require a relationship. The divorce became final in December. Vivian received the notice in the Literacy Center parking lot with Ara strapped against her chest. The document listed names, dates, property, custody, and all the machinery by which 2 joined lives became legally separate. It was thorough. It was fair. It was exactly what she had requested. She put the phone in her pocket, pressed a hand against Ara's warm head, and returned inside to finish the reading session. Adrian's first visits took place in a back room of a coffee shop whose owner asked no questions. Later they moved to a park on the rare winter days Seattle offered sun. Adrian arrived early, followed every rule, and never used Ara to begin a conversation Vivian had not agreed to have. He showed up. The federal case lasted longer. Adrian surrendered the Viscari records, testified against the Kessler financial network, and accepted charges tied to the organization he had built. His cooperation reduced the sentence but did not erase it. Before reporting to serve it, he transferred the legitimate businesses into an independently monitored trust and funded legal aid and housing for women leaving coercive homes. He made no announcement. There was no interview and no public performance of redemption. He simply began dismantling the machinery that had made him powerful, dangerous, and incompatible with the life Vivian was building. He served 22 months. During that time, every call with Ara occurred at the scheduled hour. Vivian did not soften the truth for him or punish the child with it. She held the phone while he read picture books badly, and when Ara became old enough to turn pages, she waited for him to finish each one before slapping the screen with her palm. Vivian began writing during those calls. At first, the work consisted of notes she did not intend anyone to read. Then the notes formed an argument. About loving someone while allowing yourself to be managed by them. About the loneliness of a technically complete life. About the difference between being safe and possessing agency. About how a person could be harmed by a villain, harmed by a victim, and harmed by a man who loved her, without those categories cancelling one another. 18 months after Adrian returned, the manuscript became a book titled What I Left Behind. It was not a story about a villain and not a story about a perfect victim. It was about a woman who had confused the architecture of safety for love, who had been awakened without mercy, and who had decided to remain awake. The book found more readers than Vivian expected. Letters arrived from women whose lives resembled hers in different ways, and from men who recognized themselves in passages describing what it meant to love a person while refusing to believe she was fully capable of choosing. Vivian answered as many as she could. The garden afternoon happened the following spring, when Ara was 4 years old and had developed a conviction that every dandelion existed for her personal investigation. Adrian sat in a chair near the path, watching her with the total, unhurried attention he gave the hours allotted to him. He had changed, and he had not changed in ways that would have made anything simple. He was still contained, still observant, still a man who noticed exits before furniture. But there was space in the stillness now. It was no longer always calculating the next position. Ara pulled a dandelion from the ground and tried to put it in her mouth. Adrian removed it. She expressed a loud position about this, then seized his index finger with both hands and attempted to climb him. He looked at her complete, unconscious claim on him. His face made the expression it did when he believed nobody was watching. Not happiness exactly, but a man encountering something true about himself that he had not expected. Vivian was watching. Their eyes met. They were not husband and wife. They were not enemies. They were not what they had been and not nothing. They had made something out of the rubble that belonged to no simple category and required no false name. "She is going to climb the fence," Adrian said. "She is already furious that she cannot. She is 4. She does not care." Ara released his finger, turned toward the low garden wall, and began assessing it with the focus of a scientist encountering new data. Vivian looked at the yellow kitchen behind them, the manuscript pages on the table, the water 3 blocks away, and the man in the garden chair who had made terrible decisions for reasons containing love, fear, arrogance, and cowardice. He had dismantled his empire without asking her to call the act devotion. He had served his sentence without asking her to call it enough. She had not taken him back. That remained true. It was also true that on this particular afternoon nobody was in danger, nothing was ending, and the work of building something was continuing quietly. Ara placed one foot against the wall. Adrian moved closer without touching her. Vivian stayed where Ara could see her. Neither rushed to remove the difficulty. Neither decided for her that the climb was impossible. Ara pulled, slipped, landed on the grass, and looked at the circumstance with the calm assessment of someone noting relevant variables. Then she stood and tried again. The afternoon light entered the garden, warm and specific, asking nothing of anyone. Vivian thought about the elevator doors closing, the rain, and the weight of walking out of a life that no longer fit without knowing what would fit in its place. She thought about the distance between that doorway and this garden. It had cost more than she would ever call fair, but what she carried forward was hers to choose now. Ara climbed onto the wall, turned with dirt on both knees, and lifted her arms in triumph. Adrian laughed. Vivian did too. Nothing had been restored. Something else had grown. And for the first time, that was enough.